Keeping it real, keeping it real. Keeping it real, keeping it real. Keeping it real with Reverend Laura. Keeping it real, keeping it real. Keeping it real, keeping it real. Keeping it real with Reverend Laura.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to Keeping It Real. This is a time that we take our ideas that we talk about on Sunday morning and take them into a little bit of a deeper dive and find the practical application of the things that we talk about. You know, so much of what we do in spirituality and in our transformational spirituality especially is we talk a lot about theory. And theory is great, but until we actually put it into practice, we're not really getting much out of it. One of my favorite authors, Michael Beckwith, says that rudimentary spirituality is theory. Advanced spirituality is practice. And so that's what we're doing here on Keeping It Real, is taking a look at how we can practice these ideas and these principles and see what we can do to change things in our lives. How do we get more freedom in our relationships? How do we find more freedom? What I found is that the way I actually get a greater experience of freedom in my relationships, feel more satisfactory in my relationships, is by setting boundaries. And so boundaries can seem quite contrary to the idea of freedom. A boundary implies that we're containing something, putting limits to it, and that doesn't feel like what we would think we would want with freedom. But my experience, that's what's happened, is that we get that greater sense of freedom the more we set boundaries and maintain those boundaries. So I'm reading this book called Setting Boundaries Will Set You Free by Nancy Levine. And in there, she talks about becoming boundary badasses. I love this concept of badasses. I don't know if you've read the Jen Cisnero series of books for businesses about you are a badass. But this idea of almost being radical in what we're doing. Because radical in a way that's not, out there for the whole world, but radical for what is real for us. For me, I don't know if you know much about the Enneagram, but on the Enneagram, I am a 2. And a 2 is the ultimate people pleaser. A 2 is a helper. A 2 is the person who will always be there to do whatever it is that needs to be done. 2s pride themselves on being able to be there for other people. 2s are notorious for not having boundaries. And so in the last few years, I have been working on greater and greater establishment of boundaries within my life. And for me, as someone who was so not that way, it feels very radical to become a boundary setter. So I have found a few things that have helped me setting my boundaries. One of the things that I've done is look at the things that I want in my life. Look at the things that, that I want out of a relationship. And then, journal a little bit about that idea and try to come up with the reasons why I'm not experiencing that. And those reasons why I'm not experiencing that can give me information about the boundaries that I need to set in order to be experiencing that. And so that's one of the things that I've done. It's kind of this inventory of things that I want to experience, and then looking at why I'm not experiencing them, and then finding the ways that the things that I can do that will lead to me having a greater experience of boundaries, of not greater experience of boundaries, but a greater experience in the relationship because I've set the boundaries. Boundaries are sometimes difficult to set, but even more often than that, they are difficult to maintain. It's easy to set that boundary and say, okay, this is my bottom line. I am not going past this. But then, that's fine. And we tell somebody that we announce what our boundaries are. And generally the first time people will uphold them, but then after that, it kind of creeps back in. And so with boundaries, we have to repeat that whole idea of you can't just do it once. You've got to do it often again, and you've got to hold firm to it. And oftentimes this is very uncomfortable. This is an extremely uncomfortable thing for many people to do, is to tell somebody about your boundary, to then enforce the boundary, and then take action when it's not enforced, when it's not being adhered to, when the person doesn't respond the way that we want, because then we have a choice. And the thing is, it's always up to us. The choices that we make are always our own choices. No one else is responsible for them. No one else is responsible to maintain the boundary, and no one else is responsible to police it. In other words, no one else is going to do anything about it except us. And if we're willing to let our boundaries get trampled on all the time, then that's what we've told people we're willing to accept. And so getting comfortable with being uncomfortable with the discomfort that we experience when we have to announce our boundaries, set our boundaries, uphold our boundaries. And all of that is a practice. It's just, if we find, in my experience, I found that when I did something that was an easy boundary, I'm not going to talk on the phone after 10 o'clock at night. To me, that was kind of an easy boundary. And it wasn't one that was violated very often. I just had a couple of people in my life that would do that. But once I started saying, okay, I'm in bed by 10 o'clock, I'm turning my phone off, it was a very easy boundary to do. And it gave me a feeling of success at setting boundaries. It's kind of like those training wheels that we use to start the process of getting experience in the things that we're doing in our lives. And so find the little things, the easy boundaries to set those boundaries, and then see what you can do with the ones that are a little bit more challenging in your life. And again, we have to be able to be willing to take the consequences of whatever happens when our boundaries are not upheld. If we don't uphold them, we let somebody trample all over them. We have to either be willing to speak about that to the person, to let it go. Sometimes we even have to be willing to let the relationship go. When our boundaries are constantly trampled upon over and over and over again, that's kind of a clear signal that this person isn't willing to see you as the person that you are and to respect the things that you want in your life. Boundaries are all about what we are willing to accept, what we are willing to do, and what we think we need to receive from the other people that we're in relationship with. And so I invite you to take a look at your life. If there's areas that you don't feel very good about, that aren't really working well for you in your life, take an inventory of it. See what it is that's not working, and see if there's something that you can do to set a boundary in that situation to allow yourself not to be trampled upon over and over and over again. As I said last week, each one of us is here to do amazing and wonderful things in this world. And we do this by clearing away the stuff that has been hindering us, to let ourselves develop that more authentic life, that more authentic expression of who we are. Really, that's what we're here to be in, and that's what we're here to do. Check us out on YouTube, and hope to see you each week. And again, you can always watch this later on. Have a fabulous week. Take care, people. Bye-bye.
Keeping it real with Reverend Laura.